guys. Good to be with you here. I'm Jim, the Option Professor. Tonight, we're going to go over your stocks and things that you have on your mind as far as stocks are concerned. I'm going to share you my opinions and my views on your stocks. And if we come up a little light on stocks to look at, I'll give you some of the ones that I think look pretty good or important right now. I'm going to hit the chat box here and see we got Mosaic here. MOH. Let me write some of these down because I'm a little older now. Can't remember everything. MOH, MOS. Any other ones here? Right now, that's what I'm showing. So let's go over and hit those real quick. MOH is a great company. In fact, guy Michael Burry used to be involved in it. Molina Health. I used to see it on his thing, but that's probably when it was a lot higher because this thing turned down in a big way. Obviously, these guys are involved a little bit in the stuff that United Healthcare is, I think, with a Medicare Advantage or something like that. So I think that's why it got nailed. And they're going after the healthcare companies because, they're trying to find money and trying to find money is you can just stop into your healthcare expense and you're going to find plenty of it there. So these guys are getting pinched by the government, probably looking at every expenditure and probably looking to cut them. So that's probably why it's down. All right, let me just give you what I see on the technicals that I look at. I'm going to throw a little RSI up here, get an idea if there's any divergences down here. That could be a tip for us. Let's check it out. I'll draw a chart and I'll show you what you got. Okay, so anyway, as you can see here on the stuff that I look at, it's come down to a full reversion area and then some. Last time it got past the full reversion, it peaked through it back in 2025 February, and then basically it popped right back up through it and went all the way to 360, right? Then it's back underneath everything, and you see the red line come up and met purple and turn down. That's not bullish. And blue's pointing straight down. That's not bullish. And green is rolling over. That's not bullish. So those are not bullish things that are going on. What would turn me a lot more bullish is jumping above the level of 306, 307, jumping above 320 to 325. So the two magic numbers for me was, first of all, get above gold, which is at $300. Where are we trading? 292? Yeah. So you get above 300, you get my interest. You get above 308, you'll get my interest. And clearly, you get above 325, you'll get more than my interest. You'll definitely get my commitment. So those are the three levels that I'd be looking at if I thought this thing might turn around. And since they're in a business where they are helping people who get sick, and since people get sick, that's not a bad business. That's not going to go away. And right now, he's talking about all these tariffs and all these cuts and all that. But if you recall, he was talking about that with tariffs up at 145%. He meaning President Trump and the administration and the people in the power there. So what would that lead me to believe? That would be if they change their tune, that would take this stuff right back up again. And if the healthcare system looks like it might be on the verge of collapse or something, I'm sure he will turn around his tune. And he, meaning all the people that are trying to go after these people. And if that news changes, not unlike the stock market, you're going to get a whole big different trend going on. So that's why I give you the numbers to work with, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I know if the numbers start breaking above 300, 308, and 325, whatever is in the news is going to be probably positive because that would be the price changing. So, you're down here, you're kind of stepping in front of a freight train, and that's always dangerous. And the land of milk and honey is really 340, 360, 380, 400, and you're never going to get there until you break these numbers I'm talking to you about. And could it collapse down to whatever it wants to collapse down to? Of course it could. Why would it do that? Because they go after these people's profit centers and all of a sudden their margins go out the window. And if your margins go out the window, that means your earnings are going down out the window. And if your earnings go out the window, your stock will be dropping. So that's the story on Molina. Let's look at the 1-year graph. Any divergence? Well, last time we were down here, the RSI was 45. And it never broke under 40. So that's why you got the rally. Now it's back down here and it's at 42. So let me tell you how I feel about that. If they can't break this low and break that RSI under 40 substantially, then this thing is hitting a low and it will have a reversion to the mean. And that's why the 325 number is probably the best one to keep an eye on, because this thing could have a reversion to the mean easily to that 308 number that I talked about, and even towards the 320, 325 number, 315 number, and still be in a downtrend. So the bottom line is that when these trends are down like this, for them to look like this, meaning February here, where you make a lot of money, well, it's going to have to get above these numbers and stay above them, because these are mathematical moving averages that are based on time and price. And time and price takes time and price in order to turn it around. So that's the beauty of using these things, in my view, is that it evens out all this spastic area and gives us a little bit of an idea of what the trend is. What's the trend on this stock? It's down. What's your only thing positive you can say? They're in a good industry that has obviously a market that's not going away or out of business. And they have very bad news going on now that maybe they're in the process of correcting, or maybe the people that delivered the bad news are going to back off. Either one of those outcomes would be positive. Technically, it is oversold a bit. Technically, it's holding on to 40 on the RSI. These are reasons to be optimistic. Let me give you a for instance on where I come up with that. You guys have heard of crude oil, right? Well, let me show you an example on that. People were very bearish on crude, very bearish. I wasn't very bearish, and I'll tell you why. Because you see, we had dropped from 130 bucks down to 55 bucks, right? But look where the RSI was, right in that high 30s, almost 40 area. And if you're not going to break 40 and go to 25 or 28 or 22 or 17, you're not going to accelerate to the downside. And if you're not going to accelerate to the downside, you're staring at the lows. And that's what I told people at $55 and $60. And since we just popped to almost 80, that was a good call. You can see now on crude, though, it ran into resistance at 77, exactly where the averages are, and it's backing off a bit. So if it breaks through 77 and 80, and we close down the Strait of Hormuz or something wild happens, we could spike up. But if it doesn't, this thing could very easily go back in the soup, because you can see the trends are really down. Going back to the one you wanted to talk about, it's the same story theoretically, because theoretically, again, we are at a low point. I'm sure everybody hates this stock because it's gone from 360 down to 290, and it is holding on to that 40 number. And if you can't break under the 40 substantially, you're looking at the lows. And could it have a reversion to the mean? Yes, it could. So that's what I'd be keeping an eye on. If you are trading at shorter term, you got to look at the shorter term graphs. Are you getting any divergence down here? 44. Notice we're not underneath 40. It's not breaking 40. Down here, not breaking 40. So if I'm short this thing, I'd be concerned about that. And I'd probably be covering some things, because I wouldn't bet pot that it's going to break 40, because it doesn't look like it's doing that right now. If you look at the 30-minute graph, I think this is 30-minute. Yeah, 30-minute graph. Again, you came down here, it didn't break 40, came down here, didn't break 40, come down here, just right at 39. So again, listen, this is not bullish by any means. It's just something that would tell me that it might be the lows. That's what it's telling me. Might be the lows. And again, this company was a Cadillac not that long ago. And it looks like it probably has the same problem that UNH did, which is your Medicare Advantage. And they're working on it. So that's the way I would look at Molina. The other guy is Mosaic. Now, Mosaic I was also concrete about, because I'll show you why. Because again, it was down here and it was hanging in with it. See, look at this, 39, 48. That's called a divergence. So that would tell you to load up on it, because it looks like it might be done. Once it got above 26, it was a green light, and it went right up to the resistance here. So right now it's decision time. Could it pull back? Yes, it could. If it breaks out above this area, is there anything to stop it? Not too much. What would make it go up? Agriculture. This guy's dealing fertilizer. They got a little cousin in that business. You know what their name is? I'll tell you. It's CF Industries. And how are they doing? They're doing pretty good. Why are they doing pretty good? Because they're in fertilizer. And what's going on with fertilizer? We need crops, and crops around the world need a fertilizer, and that's what these guys do. So this is looking like it's going, on a runaway train. And so if these guys can get through this number here, it could also turn into more of a runaway train. But there's nothing. Hey, listen, if you go look at the top performing stocks in the S&P this year, you're going to find this name nearby the highs, nearby the top guys, because it's obviously gone from $22 up to $36, and that's over 50%. And there's not a lot of stocks up 50% for the year so far. So you're going to find it in the short list. So again, that's what's going on with this company. And of course, I have been keeping an eye on this area, which is called the soybean market, which would be an agricultural product. And I thought this was the bottom down here. So I thought that was a good time to take a bite. And it got above 1020. And now it looks like it might be able to make a run up here if it gets going. Well, let me put it on the 1 year. You can see it has broken out, right? And on the 5 year, it tells me it could be going up to the purple line if it can get a little bit of a spike. So we'll have to see. It's not a for sure by any means, but you can see money's been coming into this market as opposed to it's been leaving it for a long time. Some people think the commodity sector might be making a big move. People who look at what? The price of gold, the price of oil, and the price of grain. And what is an index that gives you a little bit of a basket of that? I'll show you right here. This is called the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index. And can you see this has been very, very high back in 2022. And if you go back 20 years, you'll see it had a high point in 2022. It tried to test it, and then boom. Now look what it's been doing now. Hadn't it been hitting the gold line here and holding up pretty good? Yes, it has. It looks very similar to crude because why? Half of the index is crude or energy. So if it can break through this number here, and this number comes in around 580 or something like that, what does it come in at? The blue line is at 574. So it's right at the blue line. It's having trouble here. So again, if it can't get through here, it could come right back down. The RSI has broken through 50 here, and so it may start taking off. Again, this stuff isn't overbought. This isn't a highly participated area, okay? And so there could be room for it to go. But again, the jury's still out. But you can see definitely it was a bottom down here of which you could trade against, and now it's hitting resistance. If it breaks through here, like CF Industry has and others, it could really go running. And again, if we do break through 77.80 on crude, it will break up to the upside. And I'll show you something else here on the gold, which might be interesting to some of you people. The gold is, well, you can see obviously it's very overbought, right? So obviously you have to be concerned about that, but it's also moving in a parabolic fashion. And as you can see, you have a high point here with an RSI 75. You got a high point here of 65. That's a divergence. That's not so great. So if this thing does roll over, you could see a big sharp drop. But again, in this environment, if it takes out 3,500, that's all-time highs. And the RSI is not that high here. So if you broke out above 3,500, this RSI is only at 65. It could go back up and have another big run. But I'd be looking out for a pull back to the mean here. And I'll show you how I've been telling people. Okay, you pull back to the blue line, that's where you buy. You pull back through the blue line, but the blue line doesn't turn down. You let it ride, and then when it gets back above blue, you get on board. Red and blue met right here. This was an ideal place to take a shot, which I talked about in my newsletter, 32.95, 32.75, and it was resolved to the side. Then it just recently had another deal right around 33.30. What's the low? 33.13, something like that. So this 33.30, I'll call it 32.75 to 33.25. That neighborhood is so important to gold because if it were to break, it could obviously come down to 3,100 or 2,850 on a reversion to the mean. But that RSI here hugging that line like this, again, tells you that it is still in a bullish mode. And since it's only at 50 something, going up to 60 or 70 would mean blowing out this level and making new highs. So that's why this is a pretty exciting time for gold. You certainly would want to keep the bet on the north side because there's no evidence of it turning down. You'd get evidence if it started breaking under 33.50. That would be some evidence. And you get this RSI breaking through 50. That would open the door for this move I'm talking about. But without that, again, everybody who's been shorting it is getting nailed because the blue line just is rising and rising and rising and rising. And right now it seems to be stalled. So that would be a warning flag. It seems to be meeting the green line, which means that could be a key point. And the red line, of course, if it starts turning down. So what would I be looking at here? I certainly wouldn't want it trading under 33.80. And I definitely wouldn't want it underneath 33.40. And if it did both of those ideas, I'd be prepared for something down here. Until then, I'd be very well aware that it could break out to new highs and knock your socks off. So that's the story on the price of gold. And again, there was a couple of other markets on the metals. Again, this is all commodity oriented, and that's why I'm trying to tell you that Goldman Sachs index told you were near a low point, just like oil told you were near a low point at 55. But it also told you these are reversion to the mean type things, and they may continue or they could stall out. That's why it's very important to keep an eye on the short run as well. If you really want to look at the short run on gold, again, you can see the numbers are pretty much the same. You wanted to keep it above the 33.80 like we talked about and 33.40. So you want to keep this stuff alive. And if it does, if things trying to go, if it starts getting back above 34.40, well, I would think that that high is not going to hold up. So there you go. Just keep an eye on it here and let the market tell you which way it wants to go. The pullbacks have been bought. The pullbacks have been bought. We just pulled back here to 33.84, and we're not making new lows underneath that. It's been bought. So you can't forget that part. Silver. Since we're here, I'm just bouncing around the metals so you can keep an eye on them. Because the commodity sector is very underinvested in. There's not a whole lot of people in those agricultural products. There's not a lot of people, in some of these other products as well. They're just really getting a bid, and so there's participation that could come in here out of other areas. Your silver market, I just thought this thing was looking like it might break out above 30 or 35, and so that's basically what's been going on. And again, this thing was pretty easy to play because, again, it's been hugging that blue line. Yeah, it went down here for a little bit, but if the blue line's pointing straight up, this is a baloney trade, and you don't go after blue. I mean, I don't know what this was. Well, this was obviously we're going to put 150% tariffs on everybody. So that was a joke. And so was this. That's a joke, too. So the bottom line is the joke only lasted 7 days, and we're right back above it again. So this was a gift. And then once you got above there, you had all systems go at $32. So, this thing should have been bought a long time ago. This should be something that you're just trying to figure out if it's going to blow off or if it's going to pull back. This is a hard place to start doing anything. Too strong to buy, too high to buy, too strong to sell. That's what that would be called. And if you look at it on a 20-year basis, maybe it's going to go after the 50, because this thing definitely looks like it's got air in the balloon. So it'll be interesting. It'll be exciting. Very exciting. Anybody got any other stocks they'd like to talk about here? SBSW and bots. Okay. Let's talk about them. SBSW. This is something I have a personal interest in. I was hoping it might continue a little further. I thought it was a very good bargain down here in the 4 to 6 area. And basically it has been. But hang on a second. Let me write down some of these things. TDOs. And let me be brief because I don't have too much time because I was a tardy boy today. Okay. So let's go over it quickly here. 20 on the 5 year graph, I thought it might make a run for this 10. I don't know if it will or not because it's had a big run. It's stalled out a little bit. Let's take a look on where you'd want to cut and run. See, let's try to, it might go down there and fill that gap. I hope it doesn't, but it could. There's two gaps there. That's going to be problems. If it does do that, it might be a good bargain down here. But again, the money that really was made was when you get in there in the 4 to 6 area, it pops up to 7 and change. You got a nice gain on your calls and puts. You grab them if you like, or you roll them up. All right, let's talk about the next two, which is bots. I would imagine this thing's had a big run. Yeah. So this one you got to be careful with because you can see it's at a juncture where it could start tanking on you, or it could just be ready to go. This is a juncture, and I'm trying to tell you, if you start trading this thing at 32 or better, it's very possible it's going to make another big run. If you start letting it roll underneath the 30 bucks a share, and these things start rolling down, and this RSI starts breaking under here, you could come down and fill that gap there. You could come down and fill that gap there. So you got a couple of gaps underneath. So you watch this thing. I would say above 32, then you can get your stops underneath 30, 31 and a 31, if it starts breaking out. Or if it starts tanking, you could get out with a stop at 32 and see if in fact you could ride it down. Yeah, you see, there's a reason why it stalled out here. This is not a coincidence. RSI is right at a big juncture, but it also stalled out could be, again, a big blow off to the upside coming as well. So this is a great place to check out the calls and the puts and maybe try to play them both. I love this thing as being bullish because you got the red running into purple and gold. So this is really where your support is, and that's 29 bucks a share. So if you're into this thing right now, you really could be very comfortable as long as this thing continues to trade above $29. And if it starts breaking above 32, you're not going to only be comfortable, you're going to be making money. All right, next one is TDOC. TDOC, not TD. Elidor Health. Well, Health has been on the defensive, but maybe not for long. Let's check it out. Yeah. So again, it looks like it's trying to turn up. The RSI held the 40 level. That's a good sign. I'm going to one more thing here. Yeah. So let's just see on a short-term one if it seems like it's making a move. Yeah, it's still sloppy Joe, right? So basically, like I say, I take a look on a longer term graph here, and I would say that this stock has got to trade above $7. Where's that? 708. Let this thing trade at 750, and then start using $7 as a get out point, and see if it might give you a reversion rally up towards 9. Okay, guys, there's a lot of stocks I'm sure you'd like to talk about. We're at the bottom of the hour. I didn't want to end early, but I don't want to have the thing go too long. What I would like to do is invite you to contact me. I'm Jim, the Option Professor. We've got webinars that you can attend, and we also have ways every week that we send out ideas on the options and a review of the markets. David's going to put up my contact information. You could also shoot me an email, optionprofessor@gmail.com. Say, hey, I'm Mr. Jones, or I'm Joe, I'm Jane, and I'd like to talk to you more about options. I've been doing options for decades. I'm very familiar with all the strategies, all the ways you can make and lose money on them. I can share with you my knowledge, try to enhance your trading if I can, share with you how I interpret the markets as well. So there's a lot to learn. I think there's a lot I can help you with. So again, optionprofessor@gmail.com, or David put up some contact information as well. And again, anything we didn't get to, shoot me an email, your contact information. I'll be more than happy to go through it with you one by one. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming, you guys. You had a long day. I'm sorry for being a little bit late tonight, but give me an email or get a hold of me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Right now, I'm going to send it back to David. And David, thanks a lot for having me, and we'll be talking soon.